And what do you predict is going to happen? Are they going to clear the strip? What happens then?
Yeah, this is a great question. I think there's sort of two big questions. One is, are they going to clear the strip? Are they going to cleanse the strip? And then the second question, which is related to that, is what does the settlement look like? What happens after the shooting stops in the strip? My guess is they're not going to cleanse the strip. And you want to take what I say with many grains of salt, because I don't want them to cleanse the strip. So I think in a way I want to believe that they're not going to cleanse the strip. I believe that they want to still cleanse the strip. And when I see the Egyptians building infrastructure to house Palestinians driven out of Gaza, that makes me very nervous. And, the Rafah is right next to the Egyptian border. So they could drive a substantial number of people out. And of course, the Biden administration wouldn't do anything. But I don't think they're going to get away with it. I don't think they're going to do it. So I think you're going to end up with a huge number of Palestinians still in Gaza. And that brings us to the second question. What does it look like? I think this is going to be a festering wound for the foreseeable future. I think the Israelis made a huge mistake. I alluded to this before when I talked about what I would have done if I had been in charge. They made a huge mistake going into Gaza because they're not going to get out of Gaza. They're not going to decisively defeat Hamas. Hamas is going to effectively rearm and come back at them. There are limits to how many troops the Israelis can keep in Gaza, in good part because it has negative economic consequences. One of the principal reasons the Israelis have drawn down so many troops in Gaza since January of this year is that it was having terribly negative effects on the economy, because many of the reservists who were serving in the IDF work in the tech industries that are so essential for making the Israeli economy flourish. But there are limits to how many troops they can keep in there. They're dealing with a formidable adversary. And then world opinion is going to kick in. People want to settle this one. They're tired of this conflict going on, and that includes the United States. And all people want to talk about these days is the two-state solution. And they're going to push the Israelis to accept the Palestinian state, to move towards a two-state solution. The Israelis, of course, are going to resist. The Israelis have no interest in a two-state solution. So you're going to have this huge political battle that's taking place, while at the same time, the Israelis are once again the occupiers in Gaza. Remember, Ariel Sharon, who was a hardliner of the First Order, pulled Israeli troops and settlers out of Gaza because he understood that the costs of occupying Gaza far outweighed the benefits. Well, the Israelis are back in. And if they can't ethnically cleanse, that same basic logic that costs outweigh benefits, I think will kick in. And I think it'll be worse this time because it's become a front burner issue on the international stage. This gets back to the point that I was making to you before about how the lobby's task has grown more difficult with time. If you go back into the 1980s, 1990s, and for at least the first 25 years of this century, right, the Israelis could get away with what they were doing with the Palestinians quite nicely. I mean, yes, they had a first intifada and a second intifada, but they were managing the problem. But after 2007, it doesn't look like they can manage the problem the way they once did. It's blown up in their face. And they're now back in Gaza, and you have this internationalization of the problem that you didn't have before. And I think it's going to cause huge problems for Israel. And I think it's going to hurt U.S.-Israeli relations. And it's going to cause more problems among young people for Israel and for, the democratic establishment.